So I'm gonna do this first alteration is going to be. Can I use your water, Miss Diane?
Sure. It's right there. Anything you need.
This is called an alteration.
Everything that we've been doing has been kind of altering the form. The oval casserole dishes, that's an alteration. What I'm going to be altering today is a closed form. So I'm going to show you how to throw a donut ring, which in a sense kind of teaches you how to do double walls. Did you guys see, not to be morbid this morning, but did y'all see that they're looking for this 18-month-old little girl?
No.
Her mother traded her for meth.
Oh my
So don't
God.
know where the baby is. I'm like, Jesus.
I can't stand to watch stuff like that. After a while, you know, I heard a lady saying she didn't watch the news anymore, and I thought, oh wow, they're gonna be ill informed.
Well, you know, I sometimes you gotta pull away
Yeah.
because it can be so overwhelming because you just don't understand.
People can be so hard and so cruel.
So with this, I'm going to stretch it out like we did with the oval. Now how we stretched. I'm going to do the same thing.
How much clay are you using?
This is 2.5 pounds.
Okay.
2.5 pounds.
2.5 pounds. Now I'm not going to stretch it as much as we stretched out that oval. You know, we did that oval about to here. I'm not going to stretch it that far because I need the thickness. So I'm going to try to keep it short, so to speak.
Now, what are you making right now?
I'm making a donut.
What do you use it for?
The donut can actually be a vase, but what it literally, how you think of a donut, is enclosed
Okay, yes.
all the way around. What you do with the donut is once you've made the donut, flip it right side up, it becomes a vase. Cut a hole out of the top, throw a little spout, put feet on it, and it becomes a vase.
I see that kind of vase all the time. And you
And-
can throw that.
That's usually how it's made, is that it's thrown. So I'm going to keep it about that much of an opening. I want to make sure I have enough clay to bring up and around. So I open in the middle and I go all the way to the bottom. You want to make sure you keep pushing down that top so you're not losing clay unnecessarily. You'll lose a little, but you don't want to. You don't want this whole thing to come off. That's less than what you had started with. So you want to make sure you're able to keep all of that. And even if I pull myself off a little bit, if I grab the top of it, kind of act like I'm chopping down, I can bring it back. Or at least minimize my wobble.
Does that happen often?
It will. before I do anything, you'll see where my fingers dug in at. None of that can I keep. All of that gets out of the way. You don't need any of it. Flatten the top. I'm pushing on my side because I don't want an overhang. I gotta get that to meet up to the side.
I don't understand what you mean.
So when I flattened it, I had an overhang.
Oh, okay.
You don't want that overhang.
Okay.
You want to push in and get that clay connected to the wheel head,
Okay.
because otherwise that's just gonna come off as a ring. And so what I'm trying to do is create a path for me to actually go into. So I don't want to do it when it's arched up. I want to have it just flat on top. So that's the first step in making the donut, right? So now I got to split my wall because I have to have an opportunity to make it hollow. Right now it's solid. And I need to be able to pull both walls up at the same time. So I'm going to go directly in the center. And all the same rules apply as far as you want to make sure you maintain your depth. You don't want what you're pulling up and arching over to be thinner than the other side. But you also don't want this side to be super thick, because then it's weighted on one side. So 1/4 of an inch on the base is a good measurement for yourself. I'm going to open this up a little. So you can see I'm making that notch in there. A little bit bigger. Oh, that's the wheel.
When you say 1/4 inch on the base, you mean on the
Bottom thickness.
the bottom thickness?
Bottom
Okay.
thickness. So I'm going to focus on my outside first. Some people do the inside first. Really doesn't matter where you want to start. The objective is to make sure that consistently you are not thinning yourself out in the pull.
It's similar to a citrus juicer, except you would bring it in.
Now I am checking on the inside, just running my finger across, compressing.
Compressing that 1/4 inch bottom.
Please come to the front desk. Eugene, please come to the front desk at Building B. Thank you.
I know that I have a certain amount of thickness at the bottom on this interior and that exterior, because mind you, it's this, it's not this. So I know that I can undercut just a little bit so that I can grab that extra clay and do another pull. That means make sure your wheel is consistent, make sure it's slow. Now you'll remember that rollover that we did when I was showing you how to roll down? Same rules apply.
So does the one on the inside have to be taller so that it rolls back?
I usually make my inside taller than I do my outside. And then sometimes I've made sure that they're close, right? And so they don't have to be even. They can't butt up side to side. They absolutely cannot. One has to overlap on the other. Now, whether that's the outside going over, which some people do, or the inside going. They gotta overlap like this for you to get your seal. Because if it's side by side, it's just gonna, you know, you can do all kind of decorative stuff you want, and you're like, oh my God, it looks so good. And then when it comes out the camera, it's like the big old crack in the center. You need it to overlap. Now, before I overlap, I've got to introduce my curve because I want this to look like a donut. So hand position is, this is just the stabilizer. All it's doing is just holding it a little steady. It's not really doing anything. My middle finger is what I'm going to use as a guide on the inside. And this, even though it's stabilizing, when I start to flex out with my finger, this flexes with it. Okay? I don't keep it straight. This flexes along with that finger. It's helping with that curve. I'm going to get it close. And that's me collaring in. And it's not a straight up and down collar. It is a come up underneath because I'm flared out. Come up underneath, rotate my hands so that that gently brings that fold in. Okay? If you try to do this when it's flared out, you're going to get a ripple. Which means you got to cut away and you got to try to pull what you have left. Anytime you have a flare that you're trying to collar in, it should be a case of you literally bringing it in like this. I'm going to open this up just a little bit. And very slowly, because I want to close, I got to get that moisture out of there. The moisture that should be left in is a minimum. You see all that? That can't stay in there. If you leave it in there, it is going to eat through the wall. That's just what it's going to do. You got to get that sludge and that slip out of there.
It's kind of cute little shape. It's like that.
Well, I mean, you know, this is like some people were trying to do the chip and dip bowl.
I was just thinking that.
The chip and dip bowl, if I were going to do a chip and dip bowl and do it this way, I would literally give myself a half an inch. I wouldn't go all the way to the bottom. Give myself a half an inch, and I would open up to a certain point. Open it just like, act like that doesn't exist. I would open it the same way. But then I have a bottom for my bowl, and my bowl's in the center. This right here, I would probably use, you know, those things are kind of large because you're thinking of different chips or whatever. But I probably use 3 to 3.5 pounds. And how I split that down the middle, I would make sure I have enough that I can come up and give myself a lip on that outer edge to hold the chips in. And then you can shape your bowl however you want on the inside. Now once I get the majority of this out, there will be a little bit of water that will still go back in because I have got to keep my fingertips wet at this point. Some people will cut this even, and you can. It's not going to hurt anything if you do. But I'm trying to get this as close as possible. When you're doing a double wall and you want to connect them, they cannot be far apart. You can't do this and this unless you have the clay. Unless you have the clay to then bring it together. And that pull, those are 2 big pulls that you're overlapping. For this amount, I wouldn't have this opening be here and then try to make that happen. So I've got to make sure that I go in.
Are you actually pushing it in from the bottom?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's closing up.
That's helpful because sometimes when I've gone too wide and I want it to be more volcano shape, I get that ripple. But see, I'm not starting from the bottom, you know, and pushing up. I'm doing like a regular collar.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it's gonna always ripple at the top if you do a regular collar. Anytime you collar, the only time you should do this is when this is straight up and down. Straight up and down, and I want to bring it in. And I don't care if you have this much of a degree on an angle, that much. The only way is to start at the bottom, come up, make sure your hands follow the form itself. And then by the time you get up, you don't want to rush it. It'll slowly start to come in. And that doesn't mean you're going to make it in your first pass.
Right.
Maybe 4 or 5 passes.
Right, like
But,
you did,
yes.
4 or 5 passes.
But that's how you carefully get it in there. So now, I got him close, and I'm gonna open this guy up just a little bit because I need to get my finger in here.
Can you move over?
Sorry. And with this one, you can see I'm arching out my finger. Use my other fingers to stabilize, just to get that curve. I'm not worried about that top. I know you guys are like, wait a minute, the top is buckling. Hands nice and wet. And I've got, you see how my hand is resting over and under. Gently just pushing in because I've got to do it nice and slow so they meet up.
And again, you're starting from the bottom
Yes.
and bringing it.
But you see that buckle? That's okay. There's no need to panic. Sometimes it happens. Come on, be nice. I'm not worried about that ripple. Can anybody tell me why I'm not worried about that ripple?
Because you can fix it.
But how should
it'll just be done.
How should
Gonna
you?
blow it up.
There
Well,
you go.
You gonna do what?
Say it again.
What'd you say? You gonna
Gonna
do?
blow it up.
Same way I did the bottle. When I
Remember
puffed
you
out the
blew
bottle.
Yes.
I'm gonna
What
blow
do you
it
mean
out.
by blow it up?
Put air in it.
Put air
Oh,
in it.
literally.
I forgot about that. See, if that had been me, it'd been blowing up in the kiln.
Do you have a like a rubber rib?
I got several of them in my thing over there. And let me just pause this.
Crazy so. Let me see. Let's see if we can do it without popping it open. The really flexible ribs work better.
Wow.
Just because you can, like, you really can just arch it out. You can do it with a metal rib, but it has to be the straight edge only.
Real
And
thin.
yes,
that
the
thin
one that's flexible.
I got
not
one
the
of
one
those
that's
over there.
stiff, the one that's flexible. Sometimes with the rubber ribs, if they're a little too stiff, you know, you got to get it to flex. You don't want any drag.
this all compression or just shaping
All
as
compression,
well?
both.
Oh,
You're doing
okay.
both at the same time. So it'll take you a couple of times, but you want to work that seam out.
Just by compression, I kind of worked out that little,
The thing is, when people see the buckle, sometimes they stop and they panic, and they're like, I can't go any further."
once you've got it closed and the air is in there and you're pressing against it, that's pushing it.
Absolutely.
Wow. You know, there's a real science to this.
People think that there is not. I used to tell students when I first started teaching, they would all come to my class and they'd be like, "Oh my God, I've dreamed of taking this because it's like Ghost." And I go, "And I'm not Patrick Swayze, and I am not sitting behind you. And so you're going to have to figure this out on your own."
That's too funny.
Okay? Now, I know I've got my seam. And so now you got this nice curve on the top. I don't want to leave it flat. Okay? But I also don't want to take away, like I don't want to dig in because we've worked that edge. We've worked that area. So I'm going to take away a bare minimum, and then how I will round it out is through trimming. Literally one side and then the other until it looks nice and even all the way through. So I always want to do a little bit of an undercut. Now you see how I just cut up in there? Like that right there? Instead of following that along, I'm going to turn it so you can see it. Okay?
Yep.
Now I'm just going to use the back edge, take away that. I'm going to push that back in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, to get rid
Okay.
of the seam.
Yeah.
Well, to get
To
rid of
smooth it back.
that, I went in too much.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
To smooth it back out. Compress it back in.
Mm-hmm.
These are really good tips because so many times when I mess something up, I say, "Oh hell,
No,
it's
your
over."
clay is wet. You just gotta. Clay has a memory, so if you don't try to patch it immediately or try to fix it immediately, and you leave it and you try to work around, the clay's gonna remember it's there. Now I'm not gonna worry about that little indentation I have because as it firms up and I go in to trim this guy out, I'll take care of that then. You gotta make sure you go in, get that sludge out of the center. It will eat through your bottom. And I'm not going to worry about doing anything to the interior. Right? Now, if you say to yourself, well, that's still a concerned area for me. I'm still worried about that gash. Take a little bit of the really gunky up clay that you got sitting in your splash pan.
What does it look like right now? Miranda, that you're, no,
The spot where?
The spot.
What does it look like? Oh,
See it?
right there. You see it?
See it?
okay.
Okay? And I'm
Thank
just going to run really soft clay in there. Now, most people think, let me stop and get a tool and work that in, right? But if you just let clay do what it's normally going to do, every time I turn, my hands will get a little less sticky and it'll start to stay in place. Doesn't matter if it moves at this point. I just want a filler. going with my soft rib first. And it's gonna take away all that excess. Kind of like you're icing a cake.
Mm-hmm.
Go back with my metal rib.
Oh, that's amazing.
And because the clay is soft, and I've got air trapped inside, okay?
Ta-da!
And so most people want to wait until the clay is dried or it's stiffened, and they want to go in and they want to fix it. And that's okay on some things. But when you know, trapping air is a beautiful thing because it allows you to really have some buoyancy with the clay. And you can really, especially if you have a nice connection, you can press in. And y'all need to get in here? Y'all need to come in?
Yes.
So, Miss Diane, can I?
Are you guys doing all the plugs now? Are you doing?
Are you doing the?
Plugs now, the
Yeah,
wires?
we doing one by one. Y'all can go ahead. We're gonna start over there.
Just go and say hi.
Hey, how you doing, Miss Susan? I'm doing good.
They're replacing all of these. Mike. I don't know if you
The wire, yes, Miss Gail had said something. They didn't say when they were coming. So then I'm gonna run up underneath, and then I'm gonna leave it. That's it. That's my
Okay.
And then
donut,
it'll be.
All right.
okay? So then I'll worry about trimming out that other side. Once it's firm enough and I can flip it over. Then I'll worry about trimming it into the round, okay?
This
Mari,
is
can you
part
set that over
one.
there?